Hi, I'm Dr. Ellen, and I want to welcome you to Rock Your Midlife. This is where we provide you with tools, techniques, and information and inspo that you need to get unstuck and have the energy, confidence, and clarity to make your next chapter your best chapter. And today's show is really important. I mean, all the shows are important. I cover everything from fitness to menopause to mental health, but today we're going to be talking about grieving. And if you're a midlife woman like I am, and my guest is, I can bet that you have been through a thing or two that has brought a tear to your eyes. I know myself, I have been through blindness, breast cancer, divorce. I think that COVID, there was a lot of grieving at midlife. There's so many things that we're grieving. We might be going through empty nest. I've been there as well. My kids are 22 and 26. So that empty nest, the divorce, the loss of that, family unit. And I know for me, breast cancer was hard, not just the diagnosis, but this sense that, gosh, I never can be kind of free of this idea that I'll never have cancer. I'm the healthiest person that I know. And then when I got breast cancer, it was really some grieving that I had to go through, that I lost this kind of innocence. And I don't know, for me, the grieving, first time I really remember grieving at midlife was a couple of years ago, probably almost a decade ago. I would say 7 or 8 years ago. I lost one of my dearest friends, Laura, to cancer. And Laura was 3 weeks older than me, and she struggled with cancer. She fought it. She was diagnosed around Thanksgiving time, and she was gone by the beginning of May. So I guess that was probably about 8 years ago. And I didn't quite know how to grieve. This is the first time that I'd lost someone. And it sort of brings up this a little bit of an existential crisis, I think, that we have at midlife. Like, oh my God, I have more time behind me than in front of me. And have I found my passion and my purpose? Where's my life? Maybe my life isn't exactly the way that I envisioned it, and I'm running out of time. But with Laura, I remember being in Trader Joe's, right? If you've been to Trader Joe's, I think most of us have. Leave me something in the comments if you're a Trader Joe's fan. But I remember I was in Trader Joe's, and they asked me, I've been, trying to hold it all together. I think so much when we're grieving, we walk around with smiles on our faces because we're supposed to be like, everything's okay. And someone asked you, how are you? And you're like, I'm okay. I'm okay. And this was like a day or two after she had passed. And I was like, I am not okay. One of my dearest friends just died of cancer. And the sweet person at Trader Joe's, I love Trader Joe's. It was like, bing, bing, bing. They rang the bell, and this person came and gave me flowers. And it was really sweet. It really made me feel like, wow, someone cares for me. And today's show, we have entitled it, You're Not Broken, You're Just Grieving. And I'm hoping that today's show with my beautiful guest, Maryann Udel, is going to help you to understand that grieving is normal. Emotions aren't good or bad. There are difficult emotions like grief and sadness and frustration and anger. And there are really upbeat emotions like joy and gratitude and happiness. But they're equally important. And what happens is when we don't grieve, when we don't process the difficulties in our lives and really feel all of our emotions, what happens is they don't go away. We whack them down like that game of whack-a-mole. They come back up, and often they come back up as depression. You might be wondering, God, why am I so exhausted? Why do I feel like I don't want to get out of bed in the morning? Why am I feeling kind of down and depressed? Might be because you need to grieve something in your life. And so today's show is really going to help you normalize that. I think we'll be talking a little bit about self-compassion, one of my favorite topics, which is treating yourself like a good friend, being kind to yourself rather than critical and judgmental. Don't be like, oh my God, you should be over this by now. I've been divorced for 6 years now, I believe. And I'm still, I still grieve that things are a little, and I miss that family that we established together. So self-compassion is really important, being kind rather than judgmental, common humanity, knowing that I don't think there is a midlife woman, and certainly a person on the planet, maybe some kids but certainly adults who haven't grieved something. It's not just about, aging parents, people dying. It's much broader than that. So common humanity, understanding that it's normal. Things go wrong. I think all of us grieved a lot during COVID. We all have this common experience. And then the last piece of self-compassion is mindfulness. So noticing when you are grieving, you're sad, you're struggling. And I think the biggest piece of healing, and I'm sure Maryann can share much more about it, is feeling it, feeling all the feels. And not only does feel it, you heal it happen. It's first name it, you tame it, feel it, you heal it. So name, this is grieving, this is sadness, you name it, You bring it into your frontal cortex so you can heal it. You feel it in your body. But what happens is when we grieve, when we learn how to process all of our emotions, we feel them in our body. We ask ourselves, what do I need? We're kind and nurturing to ourselves. The cool thing is that not only do we process it and we feel better, but then we increase our capacity for the upbeat emotions, the joy, the happiness, the exuberance, as opposed to just trying to shove it under the rug and feeling like it's going to go away. It's not going to just go away. There's some work you have to do. So let's get into it. Let me introduce my beautiful guest. She is Maryann Udel, and she's a best-selling author, speaker, and certified life and business coach. Experienced in managing loss. She guides individuals and businesses through major transitions. She was unexpectedly introduced to the world of grief at the age of 24 when her husband died in an automobile accident. Over the years, she found a way to live, laugh, love, and find joy and thrive. When you see her, you'll be like, yeah, this woman is just really fun and upbeat. Through her company, Sheltering Tree, she offers one-on-one support, group programs, retreats, and workshops on various topics related to change, loss, and grief, whether it's working with businesses or with individuals dealing with death or an illness, a divorce, a breakup, or a job loss. She helps them make peace with the past so that they can embrace the promise of their future. I love that. Welcome to Rock Your Midlife, Maryann. So good to have you here.
Thank you, Ellen. I am so happy to be here because I know that when I went through menopause and went through my midlife crisis, I was glad that I knew how to grieve. So, and I think that there are people who try to hold on to the past, or how many websites or products are all about youth and, keeping that past alive. But uh, grief happens whenever there's a change, a major change in your life, something that is different, something that you lose, and it's something you learned to live with. You don't ever get over grief. It's something that happens to you, and it is part of your life. And in your introduction, you shared a lot of wonderful tidbits about feeling all the feels. And you're right. If you don't feel them, they don't go away. They stay inside. In fact, I had a client who came to me because she said she was crying all the time. She didn't know why. We worked together for about a year, and it turned out she was 13 when her father died. She was told to be strong for her mom. She had to take care of her little brother, and she wasn't allowed to go to her father's funeral or even grieve his passing.
Wow.
And 50 years later, she was crying all the time. So her body did not forget.
Yeah,
And
that's
she's happy.
powerful. It's like I love the phrase, no mud, no lotus. We cannot blossom
Mm,
until we do that muddy work that isn't easy. What a beautiful story. So let's first define what exactly is grief. I mean, you talked about change, but
mhm.
how do you define grief?
Grief is a normal human reaction to loss. That's it. That's all. That's the very simple definition by the Grief Recovery Institute, and it's something that we don't talk about, so we don't know how to do it. I think that it's a necessary thing, and it's not something that will go on forever and ever and ever. You won't have the intensity of it. It evolves over time. So you might, one of the practices that I often share with my clients is taking time every day to ask yourself, how am I doing? And why? That if you have that simple journaling practice every morning, you get to notice how you're feeling. You get to notice what is coming up for you and why it's coming up for you, and be able to identify, oh, today's a little bit better. I'm feeling a little happier. Those moments of gratitude I took time to acknowledge were are having a benefit. I mean, you might
Example
not
is powerful.
go through all of that in your mind, but paying attention to what you're grateful for.
And why do you think that we're not taught to grieve? I think other cultures are taught to grieve, but in our culture, you give that example of your client, and I think that we aren't. I mean, we don't have, we can pick up books, we can see people like yourself, but in general, we're not taught to grieve. Like we're taught to walk around like everything is okay. And I had another guest on, she talked about something called perfectly hidden depression, which I thought was so
Mm,
profound. This idea, especially for women, that we walk around all the time with a smile on our face, and underneath it, we're absolutely crumbling. Why are we
right.
not taught to grieve in our culture?
Well, I'm not sure why, and I think that if you go back in history, that we've gotten away from the ceremony around death and any sort of grieving. There is this puritanical stoic quality that people sometimes possess. Be strong. And social media has elaborated on that by showing the best moments of people's lives, to show the good stuff. And then you feel, oh, I have to do that too. I have to pretend I'm okay, even when I'm not. I'm fine. Yes, and that facade will crumble. And I think that there are a lot of the clients that come to me have reached the point where the facade can't hold up. The mask is cracking, and I don't know why culture has gotten away from it. I think during COVID, it started to shift because there was a lot of conversation around the shared grief that we were feeling, the loss of our normalcy, the loss of connection, the loss of touch with other people. Um, so I think it's getting to be more part of the conversation now, but I think that there's a fear of vulnerability,
Hmm.
that when you grieve, you're showing your vulnerability, that you're showing, oh, this really hurts. So I think the more honest you can be about what is happening every with everything that happens, then it's much easier to help each other. So starting the conversation is the thing. And that's one of my missions, is to be able to open up the conversation, because we all are experiencing grief all the time.
Yeah, especially I know for myself, I'm experiencing a lot of environmental grief. I'm here in Costa Rica today, and they're just cutting down the trees, and the poor monkeys are struggling. And we're nurturing this like baby squirrel that lost its mom and its home. And there's this environmental grief, as we see the temperature. I know that's a big thing for a lot of people now, feeling, oh my gosh, what is going on with the planet, and certainly what's going on in war and torn areas of the world, in the sense that I can't do anything about this. And this is so sad. What I see a lot in my practice, because I work so much with people around eating habits, is that people overeat, they overdrink, they binge watch TV. I mean, we just don't know what to do, and you don't want to feel bad. It's like, I feel like in our society, we're not supposed to feel bad. And there are all of these things that distract us from our pain. But then the problem is that after we've done those things, not only have we not dealt with the difficult emotions and processed them and done the healing work that can help us grow and move from the mud to the lotus, but
Yeah.
we're stuck with these dysfunctional behaviors. I know after I watch a little too much TV, or my clients eat junk food, do some emotional eating, they don't feel better. They're distracted, but then they
Right.
don't feel better.
Right. So it's a coping mechanism that, and I think that anyone who is denying their grief or avoiding their grief, they often resort to coping mechanisms as well. So I think we have a lot of overlap in in our work. Um, there was something you said about all of the stuff that's happening in the world, the environmental things, and I think an important point to keep in mind is know what you can control and know what is beyond your control. What can I do from where I am, from what my reality is? What is within my power to do? Right now I can start with myself and take care of whatever is happening in my inner world. so that I can show up to be a stronger, better person to help the outer world,
And
you know.
yeah, so to normalize it, let's talk a little bit about what you see in your practice besides people dying. That's what I think most people think about, that is grieving. What are some of the other reasons that people are grieving, particularly
Um,
women at midlife?
well, divorce comes up quite often, loss of youth, loss of community, you know,
Mm,
as especially if you go through a divorce or you go through a move of some sort, maybe your friends fall away. There, you mentioned empty nest. Sometimes there's the pressure of your older parents. You know, one woman came to me when her mother um, developed dementia, and then they had to get her into a home. So she was just angry all the time at her mother
mm.
for having dementia. And she had to grieve the loss of her mom before her mom was gone.
Yeah,
So,
that's a great story too, and a point to make too, because if you're thinking about like the emotional guidance scale, that
mhm,
anger is actually higher vibration than grief and sadness and depression. So often we can be angry. Anger can feel really, really energizing, but the problem with it is it's exhausting. And it's
yes,
again distracting you from the work that has to be done. So yes, even I think that sense, I do see a lot of resentment, and I also see um, again the empty nest, and I see that all the time with women really sad because they're definitely, like you said, it's changed. I was defined as mom, my life revolved around these children, and now they're gone. And I tell my clients, certainly doing the grieving, and we'll talk about some other tools besides things like journaling, but also you've got this extra space to fill and to
right,
understand too the love behind the grief, right? So not going to that angry place, but understanding that beneath the grief and sadness is this deep love, that love for that time, or love for that person, or love for your former self. But there's often this beautiful feeling behind the sadness.
right. Well, and that's what becomes. Oh, I'm glad you mentioned that because the amount of grief you experience is based on the amount of love. And it's two ends of the same stick. I get all emotional.
Yeah, just repeat the amount of the amount of grief is based on the amount of love, because you're grieving for the passage of something that you love. And I tell people that I work with, I know myself with grieving, of just holding on to that love and understanding that you
Mhm.
love this person so much, and that's why your heart is feeling broken.
And it happens with a breakup, it happens with a divorce. Even if a divorce is not amicable, you're still grieving a life that you thought you were going to have. You're grieving what the hopes were when you got married, the growth of your family together. So there's just there's at one time there was the love, and not having that is the reason to grieve. Not knowing that you were on the same, you're growing at the same together, that you've gone in different directions. So there is that grief over the loss or not having.
Yeah, yeah, so true. So you talked about journaling. Let's talk a little bit about tools that people can use besides visiting you and getting engaged with your programs and services or reading your book. What are some basic things that you've used through the grief process and that you share with your clients?
Well, I think one, exercise if you can, just get out in the fresh air and sunshine. Walk. I think walking was one of the biggest things for me when I um, was widowed, that I walked every day. I didn't have a direction. I usually ended up at the cemetery, um, but I would just walk just because I could not, I just needed to move. And you might find that that helps you as well. And it helped to clear my mind quite a bit.
Yeah, emotions are energy in motion. So I think getting in motion, if you follow me on Instagram, you see I'm always dancing. And I know no matter how I'm feeling, if I put on some music and I dance, I feel better. And I think that's an important, the moving is important too. But do you find people also like have some guilt? Like, okay, I'm grieving,
Oh,
but I'm actually going out and I'm actually finding that I'm having a nice time.
yes, that's a common one. And I think that it's possible to feel more than one thing at a time. And it's okay to be sad and happy. And you're allowed to live while you're alive. So there's no reason to have guilt. There's no oh, I went through a big thing when I got remarried. I felt like I was cheating on my first husband who was dead.
And would have
So I,
wanted you to be happy.
yes, I mean, that's why I moved. That's why I took the steps that I did. I said, and that's the reason I'm doing my business, because the experience that I went through was really hard. And I don't want anyone else to feel like they're lost and alone and broken. I mean, that was the way people communicated with me when they were uncomfortable. And I want to make it comfortable for people to talk about loss, to talk about grief, because every person you see has something that they're mourning or grieving at the moment.
So, when we get back into tools, but a question that comes
Yeah.
up that I have personally is when we're talking to someone who's lost someone, and I think about pet loss. Like, how many of us have had pet loss? Is like the worst. It's
Yeah.
horrible, and if we have a pet, it's like they're not gonna. We're gonna probably outlive them.
Mhm.
But someone that you care about is lost someone. What do you say? I mean, all that comes from is, I'm sorry. I'm sorry for your loss, or I'm here for you, or what do we say? What do we do? This obviously you can say like, how can I help you? I want to be here. But I feel like most of us are really awkward. If you're listening, put in the comments box. Do you feel awkward when you are talking to someone who is in active stage of grieving?
Well, you can just say, my thoughts and prayers are with you. I mean, if you want to add the religious part, I know that there are no words to express how you feel. Just know that I'm thinking of you. There's, I mean, you can even Google phrases to use, but just acknowledge that nothing you can say is going to change what happened. And I'm sorry you're so sad right now. I'm sorry this happened. I'm here if you want to talk.
Yeah, it's good advice, and just
And I think
normalizing it.
you can also offer to help with the things that maybe they don't want to do. If you're going to the grocery store and they live close by, I'm going to the store. What can I pick up for you? Or do you need me to walk your dog? You need help. Um, do you need? Would you like me to come over and just sit with you?
Yeah, that's a great one. I remember I do hospice work. I do Reiki at hospice. And I remember one of my most moving moments was I was there at the moment when the loved one died.
Mm,
And the wife was so distraught. And she just wanted to hold me. It's like I was just holding this space, and that's sometimes all people want. Is that I think that physical touch, especially if it's
yeah.
a spouse and you've been sleeping with them for years and you're used to touching them. I'm a very touchy feely kind of person, and I think that physical touch of just holding
Yeah.
somebody's hand or patting them on the back or giving them
Mhm.
a hug is so important.
And I think listening is probably the most important thing you can do for somebody, that they just need to be heard. They need to be acknowledged. And it's okay to ask them about their person or their pet, or just hear anything that they want to share. Because if you don't acknowledge the importance of the event, then it has no significance. They feel like it's being ignored. Like when people go back to work after someone has died, or there's some sort of major thing that has gone on, people are afraid to make eye contact. They're afraid to bring up anything because it's going to make you feel bad. But newsflash, you already feel bad. You just feel worse when you get ignored. So it's important in the corporate world to just go in and have some um, education around how to behave when somebody comes back after bereavement leave. What do you do? you know, um,
Yeah, just to hold space. And if you are going through grieving, reach
mhm,
out and get the support that you need. Reach out to people like Maryann. I mean, you're right, that sort of compassionate listening where you're not looking to fix someone, you're not looking to get advice, you're just holding space and saying, I care about you. I'm here if you want to talk. I'd be happy to listen, and just really being very mindful and very present. Okay, so
yeah.
we talked about journaling, we talked about movement. We talked a little bit about reaching out and getting help so you can like
Mhm.
be heard. What else can people do who are grieving?
Well, I think one thing is breathing. People overlook that quite a bit. I find, I found that one of the things that I did was hold my breath. That people do that when they're afraid, when something bad, but when you just, oh, sometimes those feelings just pour out.
Yeah,
So,
breathing's important too because it normalizes your nervous system. So, so often if we're grieving, our stress, our cortisol can be elevated. We can be in the what I call the lower quadrant where we're in
mhm,
uh parasympathetic. So we're not super active, but the cortisol's still high from the stress. And that's why
mhm,
we kind of just want to be in bed, but normalizing breathing. And I would think going outside and walking and getting some sunshine and breathing and letting go of the guilt and feeling like, you get to move on with your life, and it's okay for
right.
you to want to, breathe and go outside. So breathing, what else can people do?
Well, just being in nature is one thing, that there's something about being connected to your senses that helps to calm your system as well. If you're able to close your eyes, especially if you're out in nature, and just listen to the sounds around you, you can listen, you can hear the birds, you can hear the rustling of leaves. Maybe if you're near water, you can hear that. Maybe you even hear the lawn guys next door or the traffic in the distance, but connecting with the sounds that are around you just gets you more present.
Yeah, that's a great suggestion. And I think other senses too. Certainly, we talked about
Yes.
touch,
Yeah.
smell, hearing. When I'm working with clients, I often have them just, whether it's grieving or some issue that they're feeling a little anxious, having them, what are three things that I'm looking at, right? Seeing what are four things that I
Mhm.
hear, what are two things that I
Yep.
smell, what am I feeling right now,
Yes.
what am I tasting, going through the five senses, and
Yes. Five,
helping
four,
to
three, two,
I would
one.
say, yeah, I would say grounding is probably really important too. So if you're feeling like just like you're just not, you're energetically where you want to be. I love grounding, barefoot walking, or if you can find a body of water. I think being near water, so the emotional element,
Right.
immersing yourself in water can be beautiful, or even, doing, if you can go to a hot tub or something to sort of relax, getting a massage, I
Something as
think can be
simple
really
as a
beneficial.
shower, just taking a
Yeah.
shower, that it's so much easier to cry in the shower.
Mm. Do you find cinema therapy to be useful? I know sometimes when I have something to get out, if I can watch a movie that makes me cry. I was watching
Oh,
happy or sad, but just watching that can do a lot of release.
yes. Well, you can have the sad movies, you can have the happy movies. Depending on, I think that's a great thing. Maybe there's a book or something like that. Spending time with friends. If there is a friend that you trust with your soul and is willing to sit with you, I think and ask for help. Be willing to ask, I can't do this alone. Can someone come? So it's the support, reaching out for the support. You might not be comfortable in a group setting. You don't want to hear everybody else's stuff, but you need someone to hear what you're going through.
Yeah.
So just I need someone to sit with me. I don't want to be by myself. And so
Yeah. So do you find that there's a right way to grieve, or there's a time frame? I kind of bring to mind too, Kubler-Ross's The Stages of Grief. Do you feel like
mhm.
people actually go through those?
Well, those stages were actually prepared or written about people who were approaching death, not the people who are grieving afterwards. So they can be used as guides of things you might express, you might feel, and there's no particular order and there's no timeline. Grief evolves, and you will be feeling stuff for the rest of your life. It will diminish quite a bit. In the beginning, it's like a tsunami that hits you, and you're upside down and you can't find your breath or the ground. You don't know which way is up. But as things subside, you get your feet on the ground. You're able to catch your breath. You're able to see and think more clearly. The things settle down, but there'll be an occasional wave and you'll be thrown off a little bit, but you only go to your knees this time. And then you get up and then you just find your way. So you get prepared for when the waves hit you again. So being able to strengthen your core, being able to be grateful for what you have, and then plan what it is you're going to do next. So it's a process, and it requires patience on your part. It requires kindness towards yourself and an understanding community of supporters. So it's an evolution.
That's great advice too. I don't think it, like you said, it ever quite goes away. So how do you work with your clients? If someone is listening and they're thinking, gosh, this is like really stirred something in me and I need some support. First, where do people find you and how do you work with your clients?
Well, you can find me at my website, yourshelteringtree.com, and you can schedule a complimentary appointment with me just to tell me about what's going on. And most of the work that I do is one-on-one with people because I find that there are people that have a hard time opening up around others. But I also offer retreats on occasion, that either in person or virtually, to give people the opportunity to have that shared experience. Not everyone wants to open up in front of others, but I work with people one on one primarily.
Oh, that's great. And I think there is a benefit to a group to seeing that you're not alone and sharing the same, a similar experiences. So that's
Yes.
really, really powerful. I know I love your energy. I could imagine that you really hold space for people. And in general, how long do people work with you for? Is it usually a year? I'm sure it varies, but what does it look like? Is it weekly? Is it over a course of a couple months? What does it usually look like on
Well,
average?
generally, I find it takes at least 3 months to feel a little more normal. But I think a lot of clients tend to stay with me for at least a year. And that seems to be a place where they feel confident that they're able to move on alone, that they don't need the guide as much. So,
Oh, that's great. Can you share one or two sort of silver lining stories? I know there's your story of like, okay, I went through this and I decided that I was going to dedicate my life because I'm using my experience of grief because I don't want anyone to ever feel the way that I felt, confused, not normal. One or two
mm.
stories of women or men that you've worked with that, have there've been a silver lining?
Well, there was a woman who came to me who was divorced. It was at least 2 years since the divorce, and she had moved on. She established her own business. She was a single mom, 2 kids. Her mom was living with her, and she came to me because I'm still grieving my divorce. She missed that life that she thought they were going to have, raising the children together, seeing them at the wedding or whatever it is. And they were still little toddlers, grade school, early grade school. And she found a new relationship and realized that she didn't need to be fulfilled by another man, that she could find her joy and her happiness as a single woman. She shared with me that Miley Cyrus song, I could buy my
Flowers? Yeah,
flowers.
flowers. I was gonna say, yeah, that's a great song. I can buy
Mm,
myself flowers.
yes, write
Yeah,
my name in the sand.
that is amazing.
And now she has an even better, um, bigger life, and just
Yeah.
bought her first home on her own.
Wow, that is such a great story. So many amazing tidbits. If you are listening, do check out Maryann Udel's book and also her website, which is theshelteringtree.com if you need help. And I would add one more thing before we leave too is, gosh, take care of your body. I mean, I think that when we're grieving, people are bringing us all kinds of sweets and cakes, and I think that's a piece of the grieving too. But gosh, I'm right now, I'm doing a certification in nutritional psychology, and the microbiome, the gut and brain are connected. And so if you can take as good care of yourself as you can, say to people, can you bring me a salad instead of a cake? And we automatically think everybody wants sweets. Then can you bring me, tell people what it is that you want and take care of your beautiful body, because your body and mind are so connected. So just to review, we've talked about, I think the main thing is asking for support in terms of what you really need, determining what do I need right now, and getting people in your life who will listen to you, who will hug you, doing some journaling, getting outside, spending time in nature, to connecting with your senses, and knowing that this too shall pass and that life never gives us
Mhm.
more than we can truly handle. So any parting words, Maryann, for someone who's listening and saying, gosh, give one more gem that you can share with us?
Oh, well, I think this too shall pass.
Yeah, I think understanding, I always tell people too, understanding that, taking the perspective that you're a soul having a human experience, and that
Mhm.
your soul is here to experience things, to grow. That's part of our purpose in life. And I would say too is, do the healing work, because there's so much joy on the other side. As someone who has been through
Mhm.
depression, divorce, breast cancer, blindness, and now just enjoying my life to the fullest. I had such a small capacity to feel overall, because I shut myself down for such a long time. All of my emotions, the more we can feel everything, the happier we will be. And I love that we also touched on the fact that happiness and sadness and grieving are not opposites. And don't feel guilty if you find yourself, oh my gosh, I am playing ball with my dog and I just forgot about that issue. There's no guilt around
Mhm.
this process. This is guilt. I don't think guilt is a positive emotion if it gets you to change your behavior when you're doing something that is not in alignment with your core values. But if you're out having some fun, you find yourself, yeah, I'm just going out with girls, having some fun, found myself laughing for the first time in a month. That's cool. That's great. And you get to feel it all. So Maryann, thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for listening. If you have enjoyed the show, please let us know in the comments. I would love to know what you think about the show, the kind of guests you'd like to hear. If you want to reach out to me, if you need some support to help you rock your midlife, just visit me at themidlifewhisperer.com. That's themidlifewhisperer.com. I would love to support you. And if you are grieving, I encourage you to visit Maryann's website. It is theshelteringtree.com. That's theshelteringtree.com. Thanks so much, and we'll catch you soon.